Hello, Friday streamers. How is everybody out there in internet land? Welcome to the Friday stream. I am your hostess, Lisa. Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Hello, Radical Ramblings, Venera, Existential Gamer, Rachel, Nix. Anyone else out there in the chat? Say hi. We love lurkers. We love to hear from everyone. Just making a note to myself about something I want to say during the stream. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Tradwives. Not a topic I know a whole lot about. I don't watch TikTok. I don't really watch that much YouTube shorts. I feel like this is a kind of a real TikTok specific thing. Hello, expired milk, ice goddess, 15 Jessica, yam yams. The gang is all here. How exciting! So I don't really look at any of this stuff. I'm aware of this concept of Tradwives, but I want to take a little deep dive on it. We're going to read an article. I also have some slides for you. So I think that we can pretty much get going right away. I hope everybody's having a great Friday so far. I sure am. So let's start with this. Capitalism runs on women's free labor, something we need to never forget and always keep in the front of our mind. And since we have been discussing language so much lately, I want to rephrase this to capitalism requires the exploitation of women. So capitalism does not work without women's free labor. I did a pretty deep dive on this topic in a video about Paris Paloma's song and music video called Labor. And not a lot of people watched my video, but I went really deep and I was looking through some of the slides for that. And I borrowed some of the slides today because I was like, I did a lot of this work already. But I was like, "Damn, this was such a good, like, analysis and stuff. I wish more people would have seen it because I think it's also these concepts are really important. We don't talk about it enough, this idea that the our whole economic system. Oh, thanks, Ice Goddess. Um, our whole economic system would not even exist, cannot function without women doing work for free. Sometimes women are coerced into this work. Sometimes women are brainwashed into this work. Sometimes women have such low self-esteem that they don't feel that their labor has any monetary value, that that's for men. Oh, men are the ones who should be out there making money. But I, as a woman, like, don't deserve that. My labor is not worth much. And of course, that low self-esteem comes from this brainwashing that we get throughout all of our lives, right? Pretty much from day one as women. So, this is why radical feminists are critical of capitalism as a system. You know, additionally, you have the gender wage gap. Some people will say that the gender wage gap is a myth, but of course it is not. It's very real. Women earn less even when they have the same job title, when they have the same experience and education level, they are paid less. So that's another thing that's kind of maybe not inherent in capitalism, but it is definitely a part of the capitalism that we have now. Another thing radical feminists are critical of capitalism is consumer culture. Consumer culture really targets women. It encourages women to overconsume, so even we're making less money, we're still encouraged to consume. So that all makes the wheels of capitalism turn. We're really encouraged to participate in this system that oppresses women by its nature, and we're encouraged to keep it going. So Let's talk about the gender gap in housework and childcare. Because when we're talking about tradwives, what are we talking about? We're talking about stay-at-home moms. Now, this gender gap in housework and childcare is based on the fact that a lot of women do stay home and do that as their full-time job, again, unpaid. So there you go, right? But not only that, but you do even see this in countries where, both parties work or situations where both parties work. So when the man and the woman both have full-time jobs, you still see a wage gap. I don't have the US on there, so I'm just gonna tell you the US, um, amongst couples or amongst employed women do an average of 2.3 hours a day of housework and childcare in the US. Employed men do 1.6 hours a day. So, again, even in couples where both parties are employed full time and do equal, even in situations where the woman earns more, she still does more at home. So, some people would say that's because it's the woman's natural role to uh, to raise the children or whatever. If you look at some of these, like India, probably the most extreme example on there, women on average are doing 5 hours of housework per day, and men are just doing 19 minutes. Surprised that they're doing anything. That's maybe like, I don't know what you would count in, as far as housework there. Like, does, wiping their own butt count? Like, because where's that 19 minutes coming from? It's hard, I don't know. Some of these societies, it's really hard to imagine, men participating at all, especially when the women are doing so, so, so much. Korea, which we will be talking about, South Korea, um, has quite a huge gap as well. Men are doing very little, women are doing a lot. And that's definitely a place where, you know, women see this stuff with our own eyes. We experience it firsthand. So we don't actually need a news article to tell us that women do more work at home. We experience this in our own lives. And our experiences are our best tool for waking up to this stuff. I wanted to also bring this slide in, this again from that video that I did about Paris Paloma, but I just think this is really interesting and it goes along with the whole thing, especially when we're going to talk a little bit about the 4B movement in South Korea. Look at this gap: 138 minutes for a woman, 21 minutes for a man. And in Korea, the 4B movement, again, we'll get into that in a second, is really about putting your foot down and saying, I'm not even gonna date you. I'm not gonna have sex with you. I'm definitely not gonna marry you and be your housewife, house slave or whatever. I'm not gonna have your children. And I think this factors into it too. Gender inequities in household labor predict lower sexual desire in women partnered with men. So when women do more household labor, they see their partner as a dependent and sexual desire dwindles. It's all part of the same package. It's feeling like, if you feel degraded, you're not going to feel sexy. If you feel that a person is your child, you're not going to feel like sexual feelings towards them. So, um, I mentioned the discrepancy in the US again for amongst people who work. So, women and men who work, women do 2.3 hours of housework a day and men do 1.6 hours. So, still pretty large, we're considered a more progressive country as far as women's rights, and it's still quite imbalanced. Rachel says, too bad men don't believe women when we talk about labor imbalances, but they also refuse to believe any verified statistical evidence of the same. Talk about willful heads in the sand. And there's been a lot of research that men think that they do a lot more than they actually do. So they will definitely overestimate their participation in, housework and childcare. They think that they're doing a lot, if not the majority of work when they are doing a tiny fraction of it. 15th Jessica says, housework gap always reminds me of my crappy junior year roommate situation. Male roommate couldn't help as much with groceries, so he was supposed to clean, he'd forget, then complain about nagging. Or often you'll see it, the chores are broken down. So maybe the man cooks and the woman cleans up the dishes and stuff. Okay, well, that might sound kind of equitable, but some people actually enjoy preparing food and stuff. Like that can actually be an enjoyable thing. Or women will do all the housework and the man mows the lawn. Well, that takes an hour once a week or something like that. Meanwhile, the woman is doing an hour every single day of housework. And then when it comes to children, it's really seen as the woman does everything. And this is not even to mention all of the psychological, emotional kind of labor, right? Remembering birthdays, knowing who your child's pediatrician is, and those kinds of things. Like men often don't know any of that stuff. They're not involved in it. They fully rely on the woman to do all of that. And she does it. They rely on her because they can rely on her. Nick says cooking can be fun, cleaning up is a drag. And, research has shown also that single women are the happiest. And when you get married as a woman, you go from that top tier of happiness to the bottom tier. And when you get married as a man, you actually become happier. And I think it makes a lot of sense why they both move in opposite directions is because the woman is doing a lot of work. So for a man, that's going to make him happier. And for the woman, it's going to just be create a real burden, you know? Mom always does the doctor's appointments. Yeah, it would be a little almost weird to have a dad do it in probably most households. Even in my household, I was kind of raised by my dad. My mom worked. I had a kind of a different situation that's typical, but when it came to doctor's appointments and stuff, my mom always did that stuff. So, yes, things like that, school meetings, very if very rare to have only the dad do, like, a parent-teacher conference. Maybe both parents would go, but typically it's just the mom doing that stuff. There's also a gender gap in volunteerism. So when we're talking about women's unpaid labor bolstering this capitalist society that we live in, it's not just work in the home, housework, it's also volunteerism. So that could be things like PTA or church or whatever. Usually, not usually, but in the majority of situations, volunteers are women. So again, that's unpaid labor. And Existential says it's always remarked upon when the man does that stuff. That does show you that it's kind of unusual, right? So, volunteerism is great. It's a wonderful thing, but I think it's dominated by women. And again, I don't know why that is. So, but it just adds to that unpaid labor. So, worldwide, women's unpaid labor is worth, I did I like not, this is trillion, 10 trillion. No, yes, 10 trillion 900 billion. Took me a second there. Worldwide, women's unpaid labor is worth $10 trillion 900 billion per year. That's from a study done by the New York Times. And that's more than the annual revenue of the top 50 largest corporations in the world. Corporations that employ together millions of people. All of the top banks you see there, Bank of China, JP Morgan, you've got Walmart retailers, Walgreens, communications companies, AT&T, you've got Ford. You can just look at the list. All the top oil companies, BP, Exxon, etc., Amazon. Take all of those companies and add their revenue together, and it's still less than the unpaid work that women do, which is totally wild. The world, I mean, it literally would. It literally would fall apart within days if women just stopped doing unpaid labor. Um, Hi and bye, Dewey. Um, yes, 10 trillion is a totally unfathomable amount of value. It's not something I think the average person can conceptualize in any way. And yeah, it's just when you put it in these terms, though, you can kind of think of like how massive a company like Amazon is. And then you take 50 companies of that size, and women's unpaid labor is well exceeds that. It's really quite quite a lot of money, quite a lot of value and worth. Ice Goddess says, "We are the table." Right, like and but it's not seen as valuable, right? It's seen as like what any of these companies do would be seen as valuable. It's like, look at all the value they provide. Look at all of the products they create for us to use, you know? Um, like things that are necessities like oil and food and medicine and stuff like that. And then it's like, "Oh, well, what do women do? They just, like, sweep, you know, or whatever. They just, like, feed the baby." And it's just seen as kind of nothing, right? It's a given. Yeah, it's just in the background. It's like and no one's peeping up that like, "Hey, I should be getting paid for this." It's inherent. It's just totally taken for granted, forgotten, definition of taken for granted. But people will say, you know, "Isn't American capitalism as a system the best we can do?" I've literally heard this, like, "Well, capitalism sucks, but it's the best we've got." I have a picture there of Pruitt-Igoe, which if you've never heard of that super, super fascinating story, uh, when America tried to establish Soviet style housing, like this was gonna be the wave of the future, and it failed almost immediately. And I think people look to communism and Soviet countries, as being this it's like it's either capitalism or that, and we know that that style of communism sucks. It's also still really bad for women, but it's not one or the other, right? Like, there's other things between, American capitalism and, you know, Soviet communism. So, one thing we could have as a society would be more equitable taxation. Why is Jeff Bezos paying a 1% tax rate? He's one of the richest men in America, and he does not pay his fair share of taxes because we do not have an equitable taxation system. That harms women, it harms poor people who tend to overwhelmingly be women. The top, earning people, they use all the infrastructure and resources that all taxpayers provide to them to make money, which they then hoard as wealth. They take it out of the system. Ice says they ignore the time socialism works. And again, there are things that are in between this rapacious American capitalism and, uh, you know, Soviet style communism or whatever. So, one thing would be a more equitable system of taxation, stronger environmental regulations. And there were some headlines today I want to share with you. President Biden shielded millions of acres, 13 million acres of Alaskan wilderness from being drilled for oil. There are people who want to drill for oil in the Alaskan wilderness. So that's good news. And the EPA is going to make polluting companies pay to clean up, carcinogens in our drinking water. So those kinds of things, stronger environmental regulations, they actually add to the equity of the system. They improve everyone's lives, and they also punish the companies that do this, and it brings it more to a socialist state by not allowing companies to just rape the earth. More social supports like education, childcare, healthcare, housing, food. These things all benefit women um, disproportionately. Women are the ones who benefit from that. Women are often not so much in our society, definitely in other societies, but education is not prioritized for women. So giving them access, again, women are disproportionately represented amongst poor people. So giving more access to poor people to education helps them better their lives, and women are disproportionately benefit from that. Childcare, healthcare, housing, and food support are all pretty self-evident, and compensating women fairly for their labor. So some suggestions have been like universal basic income. And, so a woman who is a stay at home mom would be getting some income under that kind of system. So again, these are all ways that we can amend our current capitalist society to make up for some of that we don't compensate women for their labor, that women are exploited, and all of these things would help to offset some of that. So I want to talk a little bit about separatism and the 4B movement. Who here has heard of this 4B Korean separatism? Radical Ramblings and I did a stream about it quite a while ago. I don't know if it's like last year or something. And I've been getting a lot of comments on that stream lately, and it's kind of gotten a lot of views, so it's like sort of there's a lot of interest in it right now. There is a gal on YouTube who goes by the name of Supreme, who is started a channel called West 4B Movement. I first found out about her on Reddit, and I believe she has quite a big community on TikTok. I think it's kind of a young community. I have been hesitant to recommend other women content creators for 3 reasons. One is, especially when someone is new, you just don't know, like, what direction their content's gonna go in. So you could recommend somebody, and then they just start doing totally other stuff that you are like, "I don't agree with that at all." Um, Another reason is, uh I sometimes I have had trolls around here, so I don't wanna, like, shout out a channel and then inadvertently send them trolls. That would, like, break my heart if that happened. And then, like, the 3rd reason I don't like recommending channels is because I don't wanna be seen as, like, clout chasing or something, or, like, I'm just promoting this woman because 'cause I'll get something out of it, because that's not my vibe at all. But I do wanna recommend that channel, West 4B Movement, because I've seen a few of her streams now. I think she only has 1 that's up on the channel, and overall, the level of conversation has just been really good. She seems so passionate about it, and I just totally agree with, like, every aspect of it, and so for the time being, I just think it seems really good. Rachel says, I've been seeing a lot of videos on Instagram about 4B, but I don't know if it's just the circles I'm in or if it's growing wider among other people too. And yeah, Ice Goddess says, I really hope West 4B makes more stuff. I noticed they delete their streams. I think she left one up there. I think you came to her stream, right? The other day I saw you in the chat. But the other thing is, in the past, I haven't used separatist to describe myself in like a really long time. And it's interesting to see 4B being described as separatism, because I have always used the word separatism in that way to just describe not having like sexual relationships with men. But then I've gotten a lot of pushback from women who say what separatism actually is, it's never interacting with a man ever, never reading books written by men, never listening to music, made by men, never working with men, like living a very almost like a cloistered nun. And those are the only women who are really separatists, and everyone else is it's not separatism. I've also described I've also heard separatism described as, you can have a sexual relationship with a man as long as you don't have an emotional relationship with a man, which I totally disagree also with that definition. So I don't want to get too hung up on like what the definition is, but the way that I see it, and again, like this is why I really distance myself from this word, because it's like I don't wanna just, like, go rehash all these conversations about, like, "What is separatism?" all the time, because it's like, it doesn't really matter, it's more the spirit of it than any specific word you use to describe it. Um, but I would say that separatism is any space or lifestyle choice that excludes men. Obviously, we're talking about female separatism, not any kind of, like, racial separatism or something, or ethnic or whatever. Um, yeah. Um, just reading the chat. I think it can be I think actually there's quite a spectrum of separatist spaces, women's only bathrooms, locker rooms, things like that. Those are separatist spaces. Um, Sororities and clubs, and we're getting a little more separated here. This 4B movement where we're talking about no relationships with men. Patronizing female businesses, which is just a great idea to do anyways, but that can be a way in which women practice separatism. And then, of course, living on a commune, which is very rare and impractical. And I would, yeah, also put like cloistered nuns in that sort of level. And 15 Jessica says, I agree with seeing separatism as something that could be done in degrees. I agree. And I also think it's a lot more inclusive. I think we need to, you know, I've been talking about this on Peaceful Island that, um, there are ideas that when, like, say, normie women, and I don't say that in a disparaging way at all, that's literally just like a descriptor, so don't come for me. But when women who are, say, only familiar with liberal feminism or not really that familiar with feminism in general, and they come to these ideas of radical feminism, and if we make it so extremist and exclusive that there's nothing for them to grab onto, or like see themselves in, they will just bounce off. And I think the idea is to spread these ideas to as many women who as we can, and to get them to benefit from these uh these ideas in their own lives and incorporate certain things in their own lives. So, maybe they are already here's the other thing, maybe they're already married, maybe they already have kids, and they're like, "Is 4B for me?" Well, maybe not exactly, but there are things that I can take from it that I can bring to my relationships with men, this attitude of just seeing things for what they really are, which is what a lot of this stuff is about. So you have to give women something where they can identify with it a little. And if you make it so exclusive that you say, hey, the only women who can participate in this are women who live on a commune and never interact with males ever under any circumstances, you know what? Every woman who comes to it, they're just gonna bounce right off. Okay. You're not giving them anything that they can relate to. So when you say, hey, you know what? A woman's bathroom is a separatist space, well, that's something every woman can relate to, right? Expired milk. Yeah, this is a great point. Actually, thank you for bringing this up. 4B isn't an action, it's an inaction. There's no effort involved at all. Again, much like another thing that I'm passionate about, not wearing makeup and just showing your bare face. Again, a lot of women will feel that this is quite a great effort to put forth, but it's actually not. There is no effort. It's that's one thing that makes it nice. It's quite easy to do. So, yeah. Existential says, "Sorry, I can't accept this package because you are male." It's really that level, not even a UPS driver. I have heard that, right? Carla says, "I like your leveled takes." A Again, I think it's really should you know, I am definitely firm, but I think we have to give women something that they can see themselves in, attached to, like, just ways to get into it. I mean, I got into radical feminism very gradually, like, but the women who got me into it, they were kind about that. So I think that that's really, really important. Hi, Scott. It's the feeling when you go to a store and have to leave because the cashier is filthy male. Um, Decentering men is literally no effort. It's way more effort to center men. But the way that we are conditioned and brainwashed to see the world, yeah, in a way, it does take some effort. So I know Expired Milk are saying, these are inactions. Like you don't actually have to even do anything. You just exist as you are. Same thing with not wearing makeup. But that does take work, right? We can acknowledge that. Like, say if you've been wearing makeup and you stop, seeing yourself in the mirror, for me, it was like the first year that I stopped wearing makeup. Seeing myself in the mirror, I just had to be like, all right, we're doing this. Like it did require some mental work to, I think, decolonize that male attitude from your mind, right? That is work. So 4B is originated in Korea. I don't speak Korean, so I got the translation from Wikipedia. I hope they're right, but no sex, no dating, no marriage, and no childbirth or child rearing. Um, and fairly explanatory. The reason for saying no to these things is because they do not benefit women or there is a risk. Like with sex, you could argue that it benefits women, but women take on such a disproportional risk in having that they've just decided, cost benefit analysis, it's not really worth it. It's not worth the risk. No dating. Again, women do kind of this disproportional amount of emotional labor, worrying, etc. in dating. And once again, cost benefit analysis. Same with marriage, same with childbirth. It's about saying no to those things. Um, it's about saying no to those things that you're going to have to expend a great effort and maybe not get much out of. So Radical Rambling says separatism for me. I'm already a lesbian, so there's that. I don't have male friendships. I don't allow males into my home. I do the bare minimum when interacting with men, no makeup, no shaving, etc. So it's good to kind of have those things at the forefront of your mind, like just to be aware of this, Yeah. Almond says, I do think the majority of women could adopt feminist principles beneficial to them through kindness and through, I guess, secretly radical feminist sources, because I've noticed a lot of pro women content creators don't want to be associated with that. I do want more women to be safer and have better lives and would love to be able to speak freely about that, but having to muzzle myself. And yeah, I guess it's like some of these ideas are somewhat radical, but like also at the same time, they're pretty not that radical. That's why I always say, like, about the things we talk about, it's like, yeah, it's even to say a woman is a human being, it's like it's extreme, but it's also very bland. It's also something that everyone would agree with. And maybe if you're just coming to this for the first time and you're seeing these ideas for the first time, oh, no dating, no sex, no marriage, no childbirth, because those things are so normalized. But then when you start to peel back the layers and say, well, you know, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's beneficial to women, right? Oh, Jones says the lady in the thumbnail had a sexualized ASMR channel and is a failed OnlyFans worker. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Tradwife stuff in a little bit, and I did see in my travels that a lot of Tradwife stuff is kind of porn adjacent, or it's for men in that way, right? It's not like for women, it's for men's gratification. Um, the birth rate in South Korea is currently falling. Um, and they're at 0.81 children per woman. So that's way below replacement level, I think is 2.1. So the US is also below replacement level at 1.78, but we're still, double the Korean. Yeah, you y'all are saying about this stuff. Tradwives or stealth OF accounts. Yam Yam says it fetish fantasy. Radical says it's fetish content. I think it's in a sense fetish content for women too, because I think it's presenting this idea of a happy housewife, which in a sense could be an ideal for some women. I just don't think it really reflects reality. It's kind of like romance novel, right? Lots of women read romance novels where the man is this protector and will do anything for you and just ideal. It's sort of like idealized. Well, that's not really reflecting reality. So I think it could be fetish content not only for men but also for women. Now here is the where the stream may take a spicy turn, but I honestly don't think this is really spicy at all. And I want to return to I was talking about this West 4B channel, and I watched three of her streams, not in their entirety because they were quite long, but I did watch quite a lot of them. And one of the streams, she had on some men to speak, and actually, I felt a little bit critical of that at the time, but the more that I've reflected on it, I think it was actually important because one guy said something that was so enlightening, um, and I will get to that in a second, but this idea of racism as a tool that men use to silo women, I really think that, the most powerful thing a woman can do is speak with her voice, in our current society. Like, maybe that's not the most powerful thing, but it's an untapped power that a lot of women have that they aren't using, and not just to speak with our voices, but to speak to each other across cultural lines. So to really get to know what's going on with our sisters of all backgrounds and colors and whatever, that is really powerful. And I do think that racism is used by men in this way to sort of pit women against each other. Um, Men will say, they'll push this narrative. And, male identified women also will push this narrative that people of the other race are scary, they're dangerous, they will hurt you, we need to stick together, all this almost like kind of cultish attitudes. But really, those are manipulation tactics that are used by men to keep women from talking to other women. And, and white men do it and black men do it, and that was something that listening to like, when do I ever listen to black men? Like, never. So, actually, when I was listening to this stream and I was hearing these men speak, I was kind of like, I've heard men speak, like, I don't need to hear that, but I am actually very grateful for hearing this guy speak because I don't think I've ever heard anyone, like, say this before, but I'll get into what he said in a second. Um So, on the white people side, we have this idea of replacement theory. And I think, I wanted to talk about this in the context of Tradwives as well, because there's definitely a conservative element to it. I have not read the article for today. Usually I like to live react to the article on the stream. But I know that it does go talk about the interplay between tradwifism and conservatism. Um, Thoreau says they use race. I'm a black woman. My men are my biggest enemy and claim we listen to white women. I mean, I have been listening to more black women lately. I have black women in this community. This community is very diverse, and I'm so glad it is and grateful that it is. Um, and then I've been actively seeking out women of other backgrounds to hear about their experiences, and it's really been very enlightening. Um, so again, white supremacists will say things like they want to take this from you. This idea of replacement theory, which is like totally abhorrent, this idea that there is such a thing as white beauty, which is also, comes from a place of white supremacism. And then tradwives, I think, are on this continuum. So I think this is almost like a continuum here. And I think the tradwifism is very white oriented. But what this guy said on the 4B stream was he said, "I believe in the Black family." And he said, "Why are you," because the West 4B channel, it's run by a Black woman, and I would say the conversation was, fairly centered around Black experiences and stuff, although she had diverse voices on the channel, and she, I believe, said, that she really supports diversity of all women, and this movement is for all women, and that's obviously really appreciated. But yeah, she had this guy on, and he said this, "I believe in the Black family, this 4B thing." He really said to them, "This 4B thing is not for you. Leave that for the Korean women. That's for them. You're not them." And it was so manipulative and coercive the way that this guy was talking to these women who have made a decision that they want to be single, they don't want to have kids, and all this stuff. They were basically rejecting this traditional lifestyle. And to hear a man say, "I believe in the Black family," it just really crystallized in my mind this way that, like, again, it happens with, uh, you know, with white people. This also happens with Black people, where they're using race as this way to say to, like, basically keep women in the kitchen. Like, when I hear a man say, "I believe in the Black family," like, I just hear, like, "Get back in the kitchen, B word," like, that's where you belong. So, whether the man is contributing or not, I mean, men don't contribute in white families, they don't contribute in Black families either. Like, you know, Kiara says, "I'm a Black woman, so I don't think I'm being racist, but if Black men actually cared about the Black family, they would actually marry Black women and take care of their children." So, yeah, I don't it's dicey for me. I'm not gonna make any generalizations about stuff like that beyond this is the way that kind of all men act, right? Like, I think there are things that transcend race, and that's the point, right? Um, Ice Goddess says, "Black men are like any man, they literally don't care." And Thoreau says, "They don't like or value family. Family means owning a woman for sex and money." So, and Expired Milk says, "They only care that you serve them." Yeah, so just hearing that, I was like, "Wow." Because what he thought he was saying and what he was actually saying were so different. And but also like this idea of the black family. Um, it was it's like it's literally like the white family, right? It's like you're trying to perpetuate something that's like race based. I don't know. It feels like a form of racism, right? It's saying like women, you have this obligation to your race above your own safety, above your own well-being, that you have this obligation to produce children of your race. Like I find it really manipulative, coercive, and frankly like a really repulsive idea. Um Kiara says black men degrade black women and our looks on global platforms. They could spare me the whole black family manosphere BS. And again, this is all stuff that benefits men. It doesn't benefit women. These men only care about the insert race family because they can appoint themselves head of the house. Exactly, exactly what we're trying to say. So, and that also leads me to it's not just racism, it's also religion, and that was something listening to these black women speak, they a lot of them come from Christian households. I grew up in the church, but I didn't come from, like, a Christian household. My parents are super liberal, I just, like, randomly happened to have gone to church. But, I do think this is true too. Religion is a tool that men use to control women of all colors, and when I was sort of researching, AKA Googling about this stuff, and I looked up godly women, most of what came up I was surprised because I was looking up godly women, I thought it was gonna be very white centric, and it was not. It was, like, super, oriented around black women, and, like, I came across this book, Wives in Training. I was expecting to come across more of this, white lady with a Bible in a cornfield or whatever, and there was tons of this stuff using the scripture and, Christianity as a way to say to black women, "This is your place, to be the mother in the household, to serve the man, to take," and it's again, it's very coercive. Um Fema says, "Wow, this rhetoric is so pervasive in the Black community that I assumed outsiders just knew. Cultural exposure is more insular than I realized." And again, yeah, I'm saying like I'm like fairly educated. I'm liberal. I've spoken against racism so much, and but just hearing these black women speak about their experiences in their own, voices and everything, like, it really did open my eyes to a lot of stuff that I was not, like, aware of. I mean, I wasn't. So it's, like, I'm glad I'm getting out, and listening to women. I think it's just so, so important to do. Um Expired Milk says all male systems serve the purpose of exploiting women for resources. We talk about resources all the time. So when people debate issues of race, religion, etc., at its core, the conversation is really about men, male culture, and male values. Existential says yes. Same, agreed. My eyes were opened by Black women content creators, and yeah, it's like I'm actually not seeing a lot of. I mean, I don't. Yeah, like the top sort of radical or FDS adjacent women creators that I've been watching have all been Black. I just don't even know any white women's talking about this stuff. So I'm glad for any woman to speak about it. And it's interesting because obviously when we speak about these things, and I think that a very powerful thing that we can do is to bring our own personal experiences to these conversations. And so when these Black women bring their experiences and backgrounds and religious upbringings and all that stuff to the conversation, um, I think it's really eye-opening. And yeah, the Rose says religion is about making men God, getting a man and controlling women. God has nothing to do with it. Yeah, of course. So, like people will point to the Bible. Hey, it's in the Bible, so it must be the way that we're supposed to live. Y'all, the Bible was written by men to control women, poor people. It's a text all about controlling other people. And, like, I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't think there's a God, like it if you come to it from that, it really just changes your experience of all this stuff. But, you know, Ice Goddess says, I saw brief glances on Twitter, but not much is brought up. To be honest, a lot of racism and white woman feminism BS there, so it was unproductive. Um, Almond says, "Oh, the Bible, so you don't have possessions, you'll be buried in a humble wooden box." Yeah, definitely. Oh, I think a lot of and I actually don't have a huge problem with Jesus. I actually like quite a lot of Jesus's teachings. The problem is that modern Christianity has very, very, very little to do with historical Jesus at all. So, yeah, Existential says white people have misogyny issues, but it looks a bit different. Plus, men have vested interest in sowing discord between women of different races. So we can't compare notes. Yeah, I mean, it's like Basset Owl says black women face the highest rates of femicide in the US and domestic violence and are way more likely to experience SA before 18 compared to other races. Yeah, these are like super important. Um, yeah. Carla says, I had genuinely had no idea that black women faced so much degradation and abuse in the black community until I started watching black women on YouTube. I was one of those liberals who thought it was slander against black men. Yeah. Um, so Ice Guy says lately have been having a bone to pick with Jesus too. Um, so there you go. Expired says shout out to the Puritans. Yeah, definitely not modern Christians. All right, I think that's it for my slides. So we'll get into the article. Is Tradwife content dangerous or just stupid? So this is from New York Magazine. Uh, Not a publication I read too often, but I was just looking for Tradwife stuff and I came across this by Kathryn Jezer-Morton. And let's see. Okay, so let's get into this. Um, Alyssa, I will just say, effectively all religions throughout history have an inherent function to provide divine reasoning for and maintain women's subservience. Gwen the milkmaid. Oh man, having some allergies. Is everyone hydrating? Thoreau says, "I'm not suffering racism every second. They are forgettable, few isolated incidents. I really suffer capitalism being overworked and not allowed to be female in a man's world like every other woman." So, yeah, I'm not gonna like discount systemic racism as a problem by any means at all. Although I'm definitely like listening to your all experiences, but yeah, capitalism, sexism, these are I Existential Gamer actually, if she doesn't mind me quoting, we had a conversation about this earlier, and she said, "I have more in common with women of any other race than with men of my own race." And I thought that was, a pretty powerful statement, you know? So again, women gathering, sharing our experiences, creating these diverse communities, I think is just extremely powerful. I think it's a massive threat to men and, it's just so beneficial for our own well-being. So, there you go. Gwen the Milkmaid creates fairly cookie cutter Tradwife content, bed making and bowl stirring, while barefoot in a floral dress, abundant sourdough, male dominion over women, and urgent warnings that the government is trying to disrupt the sanctity of the white hetero nuclear family. She works in a genre that seems to be growing, although it's very hard to say for sure given how our algorithms work. Unlike other creators in this genre, she used to be a popular bisexual vegan ASMR artist and OnlyFans creator, posting under the name Gwen Gwiz. It would appear that once she started making serious money on OF, she moved to the suburbs or exurbs, opinions vary, and as she frequently professes, got interested in submitting to the will of a man. Gwen the Milkmaid's transformation is an example of what's known as the crunchy to alt right pipeline. The ideological coziness between far left anti vaxxers and alt right white supremacists is at this point well documented. So that's kind of interesting. The horseshoe theory, right? The ideological coziness between the far left anti vaxxers and alt right white supremacists is at this point well documented. There's a Saturday Night Live skit where it's a meeting of like white supremacists or something, and they s- they're trying to decide where to move to, and someone suggests they go to Vermont because Vermont is this, yes, it's liberal, but it's like this sort of paradise where it's like only white people on farms or whatever. Exactly what like these, white supremacists want to return to this natural state of things or whatever. But it continues to bewilder and upset audiences who can't always parse the ideology behind the appealing aesthetics. You might come for the calming visuals of someone kneading sourdough and pouring milk from one big glass container into another big glass container. They love doing this without realizing that you're actually consuming covertly white nationalist content. An interesting thing about aesthetics, whenever I hear the word aesthetics, I think of fascism, and this is like because I studied Italian fascism at length, and Spanish fascism, and it was really drilled into me this connection between aesthetics and fascism, um, that, like, anytime someone's really focused on the way something appears, that there could be a nefarious message behind that. So, it's really interesting, like, this hyper focus on aesthetics, which definitely all this content is super aesthetic, um, and that it's covertly white nationalist. Many Tradwife creators like Gwen the Milkmaid have enthusiastically enlisted in the culture wars, baiting and being baited by feminists, both real and imagined. Tradwife content is a game of chicken with women like me. Do I turn away and pretend I don't see it, or do I wade into the comments and call her a victim of oppression? That's a good question. Like, how would you guys interact with this content? I mean, I don't even consume this content at all. And I'm not sure like a content creator who's like maybe lost a lot of or made a lot of money doing this stuff. You know, I would say that they're more of a stooge than a victim of oppression, right? That they're a grifter or something like that. I'm not totally convinced that trad wives pose any real threat to women or feminism. For a while, I suspected there was something closed system about trad wife influencers, that they require an outraged audience to keep trending, and if we ignore them, deprive them of oxygen, they might fizzle out. There's the obvious issue of the overwhelming whiteness, but as Tressie McMillan Cottom put in her recent essay about race, gender, and Bama Rush, why would anyone want to integrate that? Which I read this essay, by the way, on my stream last year. Um, Call back. These white women can keep their trad lives. But I am beginning to wonder if trad wife aesthetics are coalescing into an ideological shorthand that might have consequential staying power even after many of these aspiring trad wife influencers themselves move on to other things. Existential says making money from alt-right coomers is the easiest grift in the world. Expired Milk says my mom just ran into Tradwife stuff and was confused how a woman with kids had time to make a bagel and cream cheese from scratch. Trad life looks very different depending on which app you're using. Tradwife content on Elon Musk's platform is mostly for and by men, which means it's fundamentally constitutive of little more than a CJ. It's indecent to look at it, let alone engage with it. So it seems like if you're looking at this Tradwife content on Twitter, that it's more pornography adjacent. On TikTok, a lot of the Tradwife content is made by young women like Gwen the Milkmaid, so young, in fact, that many of them don't have kids yet. TikTok tradwifery is a bit boring to watch. They often seem, as one commenter put it, like Sims. The performance is so exaggerated that it doesn't land as fully sincere, which makes it hard to get mad at. The interiors, meanwhile, are more exurban, new construction than scenic subsistence farm. These young ladies are warning us about toxins and vaccines and plastics from rooms made with building materials whose off gases I can smell through my phone screen. So it's very, very phony and contradictory too. I was young once too, and playing pretend like you're in Little House on the Prairie can be fun, but ultimately you put on your puffer coat and head out to Target for your tampons and espresso pods like everyone else. This is just a hunch, but I suspect many of the trad wives of TikTok are going through a phase, and if we looked in on them in 5 years, they will have moved on. Oh, this is a good point too, right? Hendrix Chick says those women are working hard putting out cooking videos on TikTok. I'm not buying the trad lifestyle here. Yeah, right. Like also if you're an influencer, right? That's a real business. It's by its own nature. It can't really be what it's trying to sell that it is. Because they're trying to sell, "Oh, I'm just this woman who takes care of my husband." No, you're not. You're like a social media maven or whatever. You're doing this business. You're getting sponsorships. You're making money. Like you're doing the thing actually that you are a businesswoman, the thing that you are critical of. So it's definitely actually runs counter to what it claims to be. And that's true too. So many of these women are actually rich. The one that I've seen on YouTube is Ballerina Farm, and her parents or parents-in-law, they're like literally billionaires. And I've seen that content and I'd be like, "Damn, I wish I could like make aesthetic content like that. It's so beautiful," or whatever. It's like, well, my parents are not billionaires, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. TikTok tradwives go much harder on the ideology and on the smutty side. The overwrought Christian hashtags, the fetish dresses and cinched aprons, the milky white cleavage, while actually showing us much less of the life itself. Yeah, this is like it's very fetishy, right? We were talking about that earlier. You've got this Christian hashtags while you're like kind of hyper sexualized too. The showing happens on Instagram where ideology is concealed behind lush gardens, cherubic baby fat rolls, and actual homestead kitchens. What Instagram lacks in buxom bosoms and hashtags, it more than makes up for with perfect evening light and natural blonde hair. Oh, here we're talking about Ballerina Farm. The Tradwife of Instagram is, of course, Ballerina Farm's Hannah Nealman, who was very recently crowned the new Mrs. American. Mrs. American, as far as I can tell, the subordinate sister pageant to Mrs. America, which is Miss America for married women. She's been written about extensively, so I'll be brief. Hannah is an icon for aspiring tradwives, but like Gwyneth in the wellness space, she occupies a logistically and energetically unattainable tier. Yeah, I've definitely seen her content and been like, how do you do that without like a staff? I mean, and she probably has one. You can't just like do all that crap. It's so time consuming. Like, you can't live a life and also do that stuff. Like, it's definitely a job, and she probably has, like, a whole production staff. Both women have some kind of spiritual Red Bull coursing through their veins, matched with unlimited funds. She is married to the son of the founder of JetBlue, which explains the bottomless farm budget. She's a Mormon, which explains the number of children, 7. She went to Juilliard, which explains the dancing. There isn't really much mystery here. I'm sure she has a small army of young Mormon babysitters to help with the kids. There's abundant childcare in Mormon Utah. It's part of the culture. What is irksome about Instagram trad life isn't the question of how does she do it all. It's that the visual appeal overrides whatever ideology lives in the background, and that's the point. So that's exactly, we're talking about fascism really prioritizes aesthetics. The aesthetics hide the violence. The aesthetics hide the inequality. The aesthetics hide the evil that lurks in fascism. And I think, the aesthetics are hiding a lot of stuff here. Because it's so aesthetic, women are encouraged and kind of brainwashed to wanting that lifestyle, which is not going to look like that for them and is probably going to end up in, a somewhat manipulative, abusive, coercive kind of relationship. When Hannah Nealman engages with chic, rich hippie brands like Rudy Jude and Doan on Instagram, she's deliberately blurring the line between aesthetics and ideology. In her best interest as a creator to cast a net wide enough to contain progressive homesteaders as well as the quiverful set, and she's very good at this. Homesteading and hand making as practices are by no means inherently conservative. Beth Gantz, a homesteader in mid Michigan who creates content about her farm life, doesn't feel kinship with Tradwives at all. Gantz created a now viral reel interrogating the underpinnings of Tradwife content recently. Gantz's content is visibly tethered to reality in one way that Tradwife content usually isn't. She occasionally includes her husband in posts, which many Tradwives conspicuously refrain from doing, making one wonder if there are men in the picture at all. Wow, that's super interesting. That's super interesting. Hmm. Tradwives pretend there is no man. There's a man off there somewhere, but he's not part of your fun homemaking thing. A lot of these homesteading skills are actually rooted in people who were in poverty, she told me recently. People turn to these things out of necessity. To do things in the most expensive and beautiful way possible feels super icky to me. And if you think about it politically, a lot of conservative values don't align with the things I associate with homesteading: stewardship of the earth, taking care of people who are less fortunate than you. Those, to Gantz, are the pillars of homesteading, rather than the hyper individualistic mentality you see in Tradwife content. I actually agree with this radical. I wouldn't be surprised if lots of these women do not have husbands. It's just about this aesthetic, right, of making sourdough bread in, a pretty dress with your breasts hanging out. But once we've accounted for the ideological slipperiness of this content, is the Tradwife's aestheticization of care a problem we should be worried about? You could argue that by prettifying care, Tradwives obscure how exhausting it really is and reinforce outdated gender norms around who does that kind of work or what kind of work. But honestly, women have been trying to make care work cute since forever. We were making it cute for the fun of it and to help cope with the work itself and as art. Making it cute is not the problem. Would it be better if we were all on the commune eating lentils and wearing matching oil stained Stalinist jumpsuits? I've lived on a commune and I can promise everyone yearns for some cute when it's stripped away. What does concern me about Tradwife content is the way it breathes new life into the old mommy wars. The mommy wars concept first appeared in Child magazine in the 80s, playing off social anxiety about the increasing number of mothers joining the workforce. According to the logic of the mommy wars, women who stay at home to raise their families are the natural enemies of those women who leave for work. So, what do you guys think about that? Women who stay at home to raise families are the natural enemies of women who leave for work. Are we natural enemies with stay at home moms? Um, no, I totally disagree with that. Again, we're talking about making some of these ideas palatable and approachable for women because really all women can benefit this. From this stuff that we talk about as far as women's liberation goes, like, even if you are a stay-at-home mom, you can literally benefit from the things that we talk about. In fact, maybe you can benefit from them even more because you can bring something to your relationship. But, um, I don't feel anything negative towards women who work for sure. I mean, women who stay at home or women who work. Carla says, "What a male-brained way to pit women against each other." Existential gamer, I am natural enemies with no woman. Totally agreed. Um, 15th Jessica sounds like a patriarchal trick to encourage infighting. Adrian, a false divide put forth by patriarchal forces to undermine women in all camps. Definitely. It's unclear to what extent these two sides were adversaries to begin with, but the media narrative stuck and the concept has been riffed on continuously ever since. I do think that with the Tradwives, there's sort of like this this idea that they're like under attack, or there's also this idea that they're doing something radical. They're reclaiming it, like, oh, this is what women aren't supposed to do. Feminists don't want me to be doing this, and I'm being a rebel. That kind of idea. Like I'm being a rebel by being a stay-at-home mom. I feel like that kind of stuff I've seen quite a lot of. Naya Roosh, founder of Mother Untitled, a group that works to redefine ideas about stay at home motherhood and maternal ambition, told me that she thought Tradwife discourse is partly an anxiety response to the way norms around care work have shifted in the wake of COVID-19. The danger is that we are in a moment where household labor is being rethought. COVID had that impact of pulling the curtains back on invisible labor, and we are at a fragile point. Progress is being made and real change is possible. But to her eyes, the popularity of Tradwife content risks undermining that progress. And also, I think that it got much worse for women during COVID. Like the division of labor skewed way worse when everyone was stuck in the house and the homeschool, like kids had to be homeschooled more or less and stuff like that. I think did it pull back the curtains? Maybe, but like I think it also made it quite worse. um yeah, Carla says being a rebel by doing exactly what men want me to do. Take that. Yeah, I mean, someone will say putting on red lipstick is rebellious, form of feminism and stuff, and I don't know, I guess you could just really believe whatever you want. "We do not want to go back to the mommy wars," said Roosh. "That was created by the media, pitted women against each other. We're seeing the exact same dynamic today. The mommy wars are one of those stories with an eternal half-life. Tradwife content, aggressively opposed to working outside the home, might share some of those sticky qualities. What if Tradwife aesthetics were already well on their way to becoming an ideological shorthand, a set of visual cues with the capacity to immediately summon emotional responses from both the left and the right? Wouldn't that be irresistible, especially, say, in a not too distant election cycle? What if the next Pepe the Frog were an animated Tradwife? What if Tradwife symbolism became a rallying cry for an entire generation of alienated young people?" I don't see that happening. When I really started to spiral, I decided to call up Max Reed for some longer term internet trend perspective. Okay, let's have another water break, friends. Reed writes the Reed Max newsletter and has been a longtime journalist on the social media discourse beat. I asked him if he believes that Tradwife content is mostly bait or mostly authentic. He says it's neither, it's just audience strategy. Social networks are specifically designed to engage people in exactly this way through the performance of political and social identity. Putting that together as a lifestyle that you show over the course of multiple videos is perfect. What about the impressionable young women at risk of being radicalized by the seductive crucible of unpasteurized dairy and skepticism about the value of a public education system? Who will speak for them? I pleaded. So, do you think that young women are at risk of being brainwashed by this stuff? Maybe. I think women are getting so much of this from everywhere, anyways, that it's like, I don't know that this is like making it worse or something, but oh, this is such a great point. Expired Milk says, in so much discourse brought about by male society, there seems to be a distinct lack of actually mentioning men at all, whether it be punching in NYC or Tradwife content with no men in sight, right? It's like, it's about men actually, ultimately, but it becomes like this woman's issue. The men are just invisible. They don't have to deal with this at all. We were also having that conversation on Peaceful Island about, we were talking about makeup and we're talking about all these issues that like, men don't have to worry about these. Like male violence is like a perfect example, right? Men don't have to bother themselves with that conversation. That's a woman's issue. It's literally caused by men. It's literally men doing it, but they don't have to trouble themselves with figuring out a solution. That's on women to do. So I think that's a great comment. Thanks, expired milk. This is strictly observational, but my guess is that people who are driving the circulation of this stuff are men, said Reed. Maybe it's a different version of the e-girl phenomenon or OF phenomenon. To the extent that I would worry about anything in the future, instead of creating a mass of tradwife women, it feels a lot like you'll get one or two very famous ones and a mass of simping male followers. Um, Oh, we're done already. I hope that Reed is right and that the largely female core of commenters in the Tradwife space are just a small tip of the audience iceberg, and below the surface lies a legion of simps. Sounds extremely dorky, but manageable. I think, okay, here we go. Hi. Hi. Um, Almond says men just are, but women. Well, what are we doing wrong? We're the ones that have to be changed and pluck and fear. Um, yeah, men just are. Women, what are we even? Our existence is up for debate. What even are we? What are we? What are women? What's a woman? Why is the conversation always what's a woman, not what's a man? No one ever is like, what's a man? That would be weird. That'd be weird. Almond says, all literally all these trends are just different ways girls and women could be, but like pornography categories, frankly. I wanted to talk about something. My YouTube video demographics for my videos is 100% female. For my live streams is 99.2% female, 0.8% male, which is definitely Adrian and Kai, our little class pets here. And then for my shorts, it's like 55% female, 45% male, and I do, fitness, climbing oriented shorts. Shorts is really, I feel like it's kind of just goes out to the like feed or whatever, so you're going to like, I mean, I guess YouTube has some control obviously of who they show it to. So they're showing it to men, but like obviously my shorts are more oriented around me doing stuff, my body and all that kind of stuff. I understand. I try to do it in a non-problematic way because I know women's fitness is so sexualized and I try to obviously be mindful of that. But like Adrian, I try to behave and not pee on anything or everything. Um yeah, radicals. Oh, interesting. Radical's videos, 86% female, 13% male, and Shorts, 100% female. How about your live streams? Live is 96 female, 3% male. That's really, really interesting. Whoa, okay, yeah. So as we were saying, like, there's just every category of women-centric content, I do feel like is a lot of it is consumed by men, unless you're making this hyper specific content like we make in our streams and our stuff. So, um, yeah, Radical definitely has a less, what Radical when you start making workout videos though, you'll pick up that male audience you've always been dreaming of. When I first started making YouTube videos and I was making, boring vlogs of my life because my life's super boring, but I was like, "I'm gonna be like Casey Neistat," but, like, all I do is just go to the deli and get a sandwich or whatever. Um, my audience was, like, almost I don't know, it was, like, 80% male or something. They just wanna watch a woman living her life, you know? I don't know. But the feminist content definitely has much less of a male audience, which is fine with me. And in fact, when I was making vlogs and I had that male audience, I was like, "No, I want a female audience." As long as it's getting a sandwich and not making a sandwich. So, um, Carla says, I like to hear about all your boring lives. I work from home and barely interact with people. I need my parasocial fix." Vibe on that. Yeah, I used to watch a lot of vlogs. That's why I was like, "I wanna do this. I wanna share my life." Um, and then eventually I was like, yeah. Hey, Lily. So, Tradwives, I guess I know a little bit more about it now than I did an hour ago. Um, yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Just, yeah, like I've been enjoying the 4B channel, and I hope more of you guys will go check them out. And uh, I felt like she opens up her panel to everybody, and I would feel like so scared to participate on there. Um, just like I don't know, it's so different when it's my own my cozy place and then venturing out into the wild to talk to women. Um, I like Peaceful Island too. Lily missed the lecture. Um, Expired milk's gonna go churn some butter. I would love to make more aesthetic content, but one, I don't have like an aesthetic house. Like, I don't have an aesthetic kitchen. I don't have an aesthetic bedroom. I don't have aesthetic anything. I'm like, not poor, poor. I don't know, whatever. Like, I feel like that aesthetic stuff though is I it's I don't know, you watch that stuff and you're like, "Oh, I guess everyone lives like that," and I'm just like a poor loser, and maybe that is true, I don't know, but, like, I feel like rich people are, like, overrepresented in aesthetic content. Um, yeah, and then the other thing is I don't know how to film good. Like, I've always been really bad about filming. I've never learned. I've been doing YouTube for 8 years. I never learned how to make anything look good. I think these streams look pretty good. I'm, like, pretty satisfied with that, but, um, yeah. Expired Milk says, "I thought parts of your house have beach house vibes." Yeah, it's like an '80s beach house. More power to us. Well, the way that I justify being a poor loser is, I'm not making those wheels of capitalism churn. And that is for real, actually, like, I've thought about that. Should I go out and get a job, make more money, blah, blah, blah? I mean, I have a job, but, like, a real job. Um, I don't wanna participate in capitalism any more than I have to, you know? That's how I justify it to myself. Also, like, I just like, you know, I like having time. So, um, gotta put together a team for one last job, one last Oh, that's good. Yeah, even I wanted to get some more art for, like, this wall, and I'm like, I can't, like, justify going out and buying art because I just feel like I never buy anything. I hate spending money. Almost everything is made with, like, slave labor. It's so depressing. Um, Thrift art, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I gotta find, like, a thrift store near me. Are the women vloggers self-sexualizing or is it something else? Hmm. I mean, when I was doing vlogs, I was definitely not sexualizing myself, like, at all, and I still had a male audience, so I don't know, like, I mean, men may be interested in things outside of sexualized things. I think it's not common, but I think it's possible. You know, obviously men also sexualize very non-sexual things too, but I used to watch a lot of women vloggers and I think they had female audiences for the most part. That's why I was sort of perplexed like when I started making videos and I had like a male audience. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Carla says, I wonder if it's because men's lives are the default and women are shown as hidden and sexualized, so there's this manufactured allure to women. What am I doing wrong? Yeah, for real. So I got a couple more minutes if anyone has anything they want to reflect on and share. Lydia says if you have a large chest, can you be free from sexualizing allegations? I think it's usually kind of the other way around that it's like, unfortunately, women who have certain body types are seen as kind of like naturally sexualized by no fault of their own, right? Or, I mean, but again, men have all different tastes and body types too. So it's like just existing, right? Did you hear about the Title IX stuff today? I did not. Should I be looking that up? Let's see. Man, I got like some postnasal drip going on. It's pretty gross. Revised. Oh no. Oh no. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, guys. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Um, is this gonna work? Administration releases revised Title IX rules. I should have talked about this today. I think we had a great chat though. I'm happy with how it went. Anytime I talk about race and stuff, I get a little nervous that someone's gonna take something the wrong way, and I think it went quite well, so I'm, like, really happy about that, but let me zoom into this a little bit. Let me get rid of radical. Bye, radical. Extend legal protections to T. Can we just get this out of here? This is irrelevant. They already had all the legal protections as far as sports goes. This has no meaning one way or the other. Hey guys, guess what? I wanna tell you I'm queer. Oh, no, now I'm not. Okay. Um, what is queer? What is queer? Like, I dyed my hair pink. It's so queer. I don't like queer because it doesn't have any meaning at all. It's like, "Oh, we need rights for queer people," like, but what is a queer person? It has, like, no definition. I'm actually a detransitioner because I was just queer 30 seconds ago for 4 seconds, so cred. I have some cred, right? Ice goddess, my hair is gray at the moment, must be queer. Oh, it's also a slur, right? When I was growing up, it was a slur back in the Stone Ages. Um, yes, I took, uh, Depo-Provera, so that's definitely a form of transitioning. Also, I have PCOS, so by definition, I'm on the, rainbow spectrum or whatever. I'm not Barbie, I'm not Ken, I'm somewhere in the middle, the 3rd sex. When I was in high school, my friends and I had a joke that there was a 3rd sex, like, this I am really old, and I'm talking 90s. None of this stuff was really a thing at all, but we had this joke that there was a 3rd sex, and we called it Zomalon. I don't know who came up with that or why, but that was like Zomalon was the 3rd sex. Um, anyways, I'm just skimming. Don't mind me. S Existential, also from the Stone Ages. Hey, Adrian, how old are you? Are you a Stone Ager too? Um, through the new regulations, the administration again, gay and transgender, 2 totally separate things. In fact, transgender is very similar to queer in that it doesn't really have a real definition. Like, what is transgender? Even is that? 'Cause, like, what is it? Oh, Adrian's a young Gen Xer. I'm a geriatric millennial, also known as an Xennial. And the da 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 yeah, because it's like, "Oh, Trump did it, so it's bad." I mean, to an extent, right? I hate Trump. Okay, don't get me wrong. I think he's, like, evil. I was talking to a friend of mine, actually, I was like, "I would if I was, like, in that jury selection or whatever, I would be like, I can't hear a case about Trump because 'cause I'm just gonna say, like, whatever." I would be so biased, right? I don't like him, but I do think this is one of the only things that he got right. Um Oh, sorry, dead air, dead air. Yeah, because Title IX also protects against, like, gender-based harassment or whatever too. It's not just, like, sports, it's other stuff too. Um, the administration steered clear of the lightning rod issue of whether transgender students should be able to play on school sports teams corresponding to their gender identity. The administration reiterated that while exclusion from an activity based on gender identity causes harm, the new rule does not extend to single-sex living facilities or sports teams. Okay, so there you go. So Radical is trying to fearmonger amongst us, but they actually did not. It seems like it's more I'm just skimming while I'm trying to do 17 things at once right here, but, you all can read this later. Here's the link if you wanna read it. But it sounds like it's not about sports, so that's cool. That's cool. Da, 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 da. Okay, we should wrap up. Oh, Lisa, the new regulations for Title IX remove the word sex and replace it with gender identity. Well, that's stupid. Again, replacing something that has a meaning and a concrete definition with something that doesn't, and it has a material impact on 50% of the population, women and girls. No, I know, I was kidding. Changing sex to gender identity gives plenty of room for men to be awful. Jessica says he's changing Title IX, but not the things that would piss off potential voters who don't like gender identity. And I think that's, I mean, he probably shouldn't be touching it at all, but at least there's that. Um, no. Uh, if Title IX is not protecting women on the basis of sex and now it's gender identity, women are screwed. I don't know. I mean, I have not like looked at this at all. Maybe this is something we could talk about. I mean, you're Canadian, so it's up to you if you want to talk about it. I think streams on my channel this week, or it's no, it's on your channel. Okay, so that's what we should finish up with here. So next Tuesday, I will be on whose channel? I don't remember. Me or Radical's channel? Radical, is it your turn this week to host? I think it is. I don't know either. Who's keeping up? Where were we last Tuesday? Were we on my channel or were we on Radical's channel? I could just look. Uh, uh, live. Let's see. The last time I streamed on my channel was April 12th. Yeah, so we're on my channel this week. Um, so yeah, maybe we could talk about this Title IX stuff. It's kind of a little bit dry, I think. It's the article seemed a little boring, but maybe there'll be more stuff written about it by then. So that would be cool. So I will be streaming with Radical on my channel Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. I think, and we can make it fun. We always make it fun. You guys are the best commentary. It and yeah, actually, I had a friend who was like, "Why don't you talk about the gender stuff more? People are really into that." Um, and you know, we can talk about it a little bit here and there. I think it's important, but there's so many other things to talk about. So, all right. Bye, guys. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Um, cool. Thanks for coming to the stream. Thanks for learning about Tradwives. Thanks for talking about all our spicy topics. And yeah, I will see Peaceful Island back on Peaceful Island and go bake some sourdough bread. Bye.